Welcome to At a Glance, the series in which I give you an appetizer, sample, or glimpse into a particular faction in 40k. And the goal behind it is to skip across the surface of everything to help you decide if you want to look into the Force more so on your own, or perhaps do that and even start collecting the Force as well. So I'll be going over the basics of the Force, right? A brief rundown of them, the whole coloration and symbology, whatever else of the Force. Then I'll discuss what you'll need book-wise to collect them, and some basic ideas for building and painting said Force. That is the idea, and after all of that, you can make a more informed decision if you've never heard about them before to decide if you want to go ahead and look further into that as something interesting, or if you're sold, you can get started collecting and look further in it as well. So with all that said, let's check out what's on the chopping block. So up on the chopping block this time is going to be a Force I've already talked about. I'm redoing my at a glances slowly, starting with this Force. So the old video won't be up when this is up, but I will be redoing my at a glance videos to bring it up in line with 9th edition and everything else. So just keep that in mind. In this case, I am talking about a loyalist Space Marine Force that happens to be a second founding successor and a member of the Unforgiven. So they are a member because they are successors of the Dark Angels. And it's one of the first successors we've officially known about. And this is the Angels of Vengeance Space Marine chapter, my favorite Unforgiven successor, personally. So let's, skip across the surface and talk about them. The Angels of Vengeance are less well known than even other Unforgiven forces because all Unforgiven forces, being Dark Angel Gene Seed, have certain predispositions. And for the Angels of Vengeance, they really exemplify the grim, dour resolve and complete focus on duty to the exclusion of all else, even more so than their brethren. So while all Unforgiven basically have similarities to the Angels of Vengeance and to everybody else, they crank up certain aspects to 11. So their shunning of fame and everything else is even more so than others, and they really only focus on duty. They're super grim, dour, taciturn, and everything else, and therefore, outside of the Unforgiven, good luck associating with them. And I say this because the exception to all this is amongst the Unforgiven themselves. They actually are very close-knit to each other. It makes them almost like a quasi-legion, much to the chagrin of the Inquisition. In any case, the Angels of Vengeance have a particular note of utterly refusing anything but victory. They have been brought to the brink of annihilation time and time again because they will not back down and redeploy or withdraw from a battle or a campaign. They will see it through to the end, and therefore they'll be bloodied, battered, depleted in strength, but victorious. Is this always a good outcome? Well, the victorious part, yes. The rest of it, no. But this is 40k where things need to be over the top, and they are very over the top in their way, and it fits perfectly. They just have the utter refusal to back down. So they have been brought to the brink of annihilation many times in their long history. Remember the second founding, so they've been in existence technically even before the second founding because they come from the original Legion. So utter refusal for anything but victory means high casualty has happened to the Angel of Vengeance time and time again, and they've had whole decades worth of time, in one case approaching a century worth of time, where they pretty much couldn't do anything but rebuild. Even in that, though, they never tire and never cease to seek out the enemies of the Emperor. They have a particularly strong hatred, which is surprising considering they hate everything that's an enemy of the Imperium, but they have a particularly strong hatred for the forces of chaos. Note, all forces of chaos, not just the fallen. The Unforgiven do collectively hump fallen, but this is just, if you worship the chaos gods, the Angel of Vengeance have a special hatred for you in general. So, with all of that said, their resolve is therefore fantastic because they're able to make it through, and their skill at arms has to be equally powerful as well to make it through these horrible odds that would have destroyed whole other forces. In any case, being an Unforgiven member, they organization-wise are very similar to the Dark Angels. They have a first and second company just like Deathwing and Ravenwing. They're just not different colors, and they're not called Deathwing and Ravenwing. we happen to know the Angels of Vengeance naming for their first and second company, which is pretty cool. Their first company is Dreadwing, and their second company is Raptorwing. Now, Dreadwing was probably chosen because it sounded cool, and I believe we learned about this either right around the same time we learned about Dreadwing being one of the Hexagrammaton of the Dark Angels Legion originally, or a little bit before, I'm not sure. In any case, it's a cool name, and could it be now hinting at perhaps the origins of the Angels of Vengeance during the second founding? Who knows? But it's cool nonetheless. They are also interesting in their pragmatic ways, as the Dark Angels GNC tends to be rather pragmatic, in that they're one of the first of the Unforgiven to kind of accept the Primaris reinforcements, and they've actually developed a nice flanking maneuver for a 1-2 punch of utilizing Inceptor squads alongside Firstborn Assault Marine squads for that 1-2 punch. So that's rather neat. And their second company, the Raptorwing, is probably one of the stronger second companies amongst the Unforgiven. I make this assumption because in the lore of the Dark Angels, there was a period of time in which the Ravenwing leadership was dying quickly, unfortunately. So they had enough of it, and they literally borrowed the leadership, or the leader, I should say, of the Raptorwing to lead the Ravenwing for a period of time. And I don't think they would have chosen just any second company leader to do this. So we can infer that the Raptorwing is particularly skilled if the parent force, the Dark Angels, decide that, yes, that leader will lead our Ravenwing while we groom a better leader. So that's rather cool. With all of that said, that is just skimming across the surface and maybe getting a little bit beneath the surface of the Angels of Vengeance chapter. You've been looking at them, so let's fully break down what they look like, quickly. They're black armored. Very striking, always a nice, menacing look is black armored Space Marines. Their chest emblem can be done either in like a white or a silver or a bone, depending upon your reference material and what you like. Their squad markings are done in white with the same style as the Dark Angels, but just in white. Their chapter symbol is a white winged skull facing you with a red hood. Now, despite the fact that it has a red hood, the actual robe coloration for the Angels of Vengeance is not red, although we do see a couple examples of red for a certain leadership and some old fan-based models painted up. The truth is, their robe coloration is black. Now, you can use red if you want to, just, to further exacerbate things and have it stand out, but truly, the robe coloration for the Angels of Vengeance is black. And this leads to a very visually striking, menacing, dark armored Space Marine. It also is a little bit more involved to paint up than a black armored force without black robes, because now you have to do the black robes and the black armor different from each other, which means two different styles, which could be a little bit more in depth to do than normal, but that's okay. Regardless, it's a very visually striking force, and with that, they have red helmet lenses. They have red weapons or black. I tend to prefer the red. It helps it stand out. So, very visually striking. The entire chapter is done this way from 1st to 10th company. So, nothing different for their 1st and 2nd company. And it's very fitting for their whole, structure. So, with that said, let's talk about the books needed to collect them. If you decide, I'm going to dive in and collect it, you're going to need 2 books here, because with 9th edition comes the change to how Space Marine forces work for the Imperium. There's Grey Knights, which are specialized, so they have their own, super specialized, so they have their own codex still. But everything else that's in the Imperium, Astartes-wise, utilize the Space Marine codex and then a supplement book. In this case, of course, the Dark Angel supplement book. Given that the Dark Angels and their Unforgiven successors organizationally are very similar to each other, the same strategy in place for collecting Dark Angels is what you utilize for, in this case, Angels of Vengeance. Now, one extra exception is the fact that technically the way the rules and the way they write it up and discuss, keywords and special characters and the like, you can't do accounts of Azrael or Belial or anything like that, technically. But I don't believe in that. For years you could, no big deal, and there's no extra benefit for doing so. He doesn't magically become a stronger character because it's a counts as. So my recommendation is in pickup games, if somebody doesn't like it, play against somebody else. Take it or leave it. Basically, you can tell them. And particularly in events and tournaments, contact the organizers and say, hey, look, this is my army list. This is what I'm doing because, well, it's the Angels of Vengeance, XYZ, ABC. Explain it. And ask for permission, basically, to run your accounts as Azrael, Belial, whatever. Chances are they'll say, hey, no problem. Makes total sense. It's not an unfair advantage. No big deal. But you want to get permission in those cases because inevitably you're going to face a rules lawyer who's going to try and challenge this. And those are always annoying. So if you already have that allowance from the organizer, you can just tell them, take it up with the organizer, they okayed it. And that should squash it, hopefully. So with that said, that's the one little extra thing of note, considering we are talking a successor here. So with that said, the Space Marine Codex, the Dark Angel Supplement book, together, build a really cool army list how you will. So you want to collect them physically now, obviously. You got your book, you got your army list, let's say, theoretically. Now let's discuss actually building and painting this force. A lot of the Dark Angel specific bits, not the Dark Angel symboled bits, but the Dark Angel bits from the Company Veteran box, Deathwing and Ravenwing boxes, those things, a lot of them will work for you. Right? Even the stylized Ravenwing bikes can work for your Raptor Wing. No big deal. So that's great. Obviously, Dark Angel chapter symbols, shoulder pads aren't going to work for you, but any squad marking shoulder pads will. And in some cases, you could say, well, the reason why there's a Dark Angel icon hanging from his belt is to signify that this battle brother fought alongside the Dark Angels at one point. Just a little recognition thing. Yes, they shun Fame and Laurels, but we also have to remember the major exception for the Unforgiven is themselves, because they work very closely. But you could equally just not utilize that bit at all. So that is nice, though, because you get a lot of really cool bits to help further define your force. And, of course, helmets and shoulder pads for normal Mark 10 Armored Primaris are compatible, from the Firstborn stuff. So that was very handy and nice as well. Outside of that, when it comes to actually painting them up, just figure out how you're doing your black robes from your black armor. And my recommendation in those instances is to go ahead and do the robes first on that particular model, but do the robes in a near black. Basically, do a nice neutral gray base coat, and either with contrast paints, inks, or washes, do a couple layers, thin down the contrast a little bit to like a glaze, and then do a couple layers of either black or blue and black or whatever to get into the recesses to make it so close to black that you might as well call it black, but technically it's not. It's near black. And then the pure black of your armor, if that's what you're doing, will stand out even more. So that's my recommendation for the Angels of Vengeance. Do dry brushing for the robes and nice crisp edge highlighting for the armor to further define the two as different and really help them pop alongside each other and not just blend in, which is always nice. And outside of that, just do what you will for everything else. The chapter symbol, because of the bright colors of white and red on it, unless your printer can print white ink, you're going to want to either be careful with the make a black border around it on white paper so you can cut right to the black border and then use that if you're going to print your own decals, or you print on clear decal sheets which really aren't going to show up at all on black. Then you paint the shoulder pad white, put the symbol down, carefully paint your black around it after that. There are ways if you so desire. There's also old transfer sheets of the Angels of Vengeance that might still be floating on the web. I was hoping GW would bring them back at some point. They haven't yet, so my best recommendation for that for you is to go ahead, and if you do find it at not a price gouging price, to pick it up and make use of that, because that's the easiest way to do it. Anyways, with that said, do the red how you will for the weaponry and the helmet lenses, whatever else. I like the bone chest emblem. I think it helps pop without looking too washed out in the white or being just another silver emblem. So that can be nice on the black armor. And all together will pop. And considering not everything's going to have a robe, the robe marines might take a little bit longer, but once you figure out the way you're going to do the hardened black armor of the power armor, the rest of your space marines not in robe should go pretty quick. And then even the robe one shouldn't be too bad once you figured out what you're doing. With all that said, if you are going to do more of a heavy wash type situation to tone down the gray to a near black on the robes, dry the model upside down so it pulls into the recesses more naturally and not just to the bottom of the model. Anyways, having said all that, those are just some food for thought things for painting up your Angels of Vengeance. It's a very visually striking force that I think is very cool, especially if you take the time to do the black robes on the black armor. Anyways, with that said, what are your thoughts? Share your thoughts on the Angel of Vengeance in the comment section down below. Do you collect them? Do you collect a different Unforgiven force? Or do you collect the OG Dark Angels? Share it all in the comment section down below. I will be doing my playlist over again as it stands thus far before personally picking new forces to talk about. If you have a burning desire to request something, by all means post your request of a faction in the comment section. Just bear in mind, if there's no visuals for them and there's no lore or not enough lore to make up for it, I can't really talk about it. It needs to have some form of substance there, but I'll do my best to determine. In any case, feel free to make your requests, but I will be doing everything that's in the playlist right now over again over time. So with all that said, thanks so much for tuning in and stopping by, and until next time, take it easy.